Okay, let's get a test here. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I don't show, let me check my deal here. Okay, that should be better.
So how's everybody doing this evening? So this is kind of an impromptu, definitely not a formal deal here this evening whatsoever. We're going to be going over some of the files that were gleaned during our recent treasure outing. So I only showed one of the sites. There was another site that I also worked on and did a little bit of digging and recovered one little artifact from. It's not associated with the main 77 loads. This goes to the other map on the rock. So if you haven't seen the original video, 77 Mule Loads to Glory, before this live stream, you need to go watch that immediately afterward, because then you're going to know what I'm referring to. So I have pictures of all this stuff. It's kind of scattered a little bit. And I'm using a brand new computer, giant HP workstation from like 2014. But the thing would probably, it's damn near a supercomputer or whatever. I bought everything used, got a great deal on it. It's phenomenal, running 32 gigs of RAM. It's expandable up to over 300, but Windows will only run 128 gigs of RAM. So this thing flies. And the point of what we're doing this evening is to run video without any glitching or anything. So we've tried to do this in the past. It's what I've always wanted to do, is be able to go through raw files so I can discuss the files with my people, and we just go through these things together. So I've got so much stuff in computers, it would take forever. I mean, it would take me literally years and years of editing to edit it all into videos. But what we want to do in the near future is go through these things directly from file and just surf them and go for it. Just whatever. It's like this evening, it's late, I'm tired, I'm catching something, God knows what it is. But if you don't care, I don't care. So here you are, we're going to do the deed. We're going to start with, I'm going to go back, I still got some sound coming up here from somewhere. Just a second here. Okay, so what we're going to start with is a little bit of history on it. So there's a landowner, there's a good friend of mine, and he had an inscription on his property, and wanted me to take a look at it. And the last couple of years, just haven't had a chance to get out there. And he finally drugged me out there, and I told him I could break this stuff really easy. So I did this for years and years and years. The Bigfoot stuff was as a result of doing exploration and recovery work for over 30 years now. And breaking codes and coded templates and things like that is what I do for the mainstay. I also run technology, deep earth imaging and stuff, and then conduct archaeological excavations and recoveries. But I haven't been doing it for a long time because one big dig I got really screwed on, and it went really sour, really sideways with 23 major investors and this and that. And I got on the Securities and Exchange Commission, and all kinds of problems happened, and it's still sitting in the ground. Multi-billion-dollar find. And that just, it hit me so hard in so many ways. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it hit me so hard, I just decided, hell with the treasure thing, I'll go find Bigfoot. So in 2010, I wrapped it up. That's why we started putting all our effort into Bigfoot. Because really, there's, I didn't think there was much greed, hatred, and cutthroat activity, but it turns out there pretty much is that much greed, hatred, and cutthroat activity. I've been a victim of most of it because we tend to do rather well, and when you do well, others get jealous. But needless to say, so it came down to this site, so I went out there and it took one day of looking, measuring, and checking things out, and then came home and slept on it for a week or two and pondered everything, and then went out the following second time out and ended up hitting either the main cache or a portion of it. It also could be a tool cache, but I think this is done in a way that's going to be far beyond tools, plus metal detector and some other phenomena we'll go over this evening. shows me that it's gold in the hole, and so does the inscription that's there as well also says there's gold in the hole. So anyway, for those that don't know, so we did that and then ended up finding basically a sealed over area that's extremely hollow, and it has a type of eye or reflection that messes with cameras and things like that. And so I went ahead and did what I could that day. Now, the landowner, he's got his own thing going on. He's had some family problems recently and things, death in family and whatnot. And so haven't had a chance to get back out to that site yet. But what I want to do is go over some of the maps. Now, if you've seen that video, you know that there's a map stone that it's based on, and that has two different magnetic alignments. And people have written me and get this stuff kind of confused, but they were not declaring north on land using the stars for treasure stuff generally. So they're going by magnetic north, most of the guys who did this work. They didn't carry a sextant around and things, so gauging by the stars, and they knew that the people that would be following them often wouldn't have that as well. So they marked where the north was, so that north could be checked later and checked back. So they were well aware of changes in magnetic north. And so what that does is it lets us date the site. And so based on that, we know we have two maps. Also, the symbols that are used and the obvious age to the etchings show that it's two different time periods. One's very old, perhaps 1590, 1650, and the others anywhere from the late actually mid 1700s probably to even mid 1800s, when New Mexico was going to be one of the American territories. Before that, it was all Spanish, and they left everything in place. And that was going to happen in 1848. The Catholic missionaries, who many of them were Jesuit priests posing as Catholic missionaries, overseeing all the mines and caches from before the revolt period, those guys got nervous and started to move things all over the place. And I'm going to go back through chat and stuff in a little bit, and we'll catch some of the questions and things. But I think what we'll do now is just we'll go ahead and get into it. And where this starts off with, and you'll have to excuse wind noise. This was just real stuff as it was being metal detected. This particular day was very windy on this site, and the GoPro had already gone down. This was being recorded with the phone because it's a backup, and but you'll see anyway. So this is literally at the end of the evening, and with some high winds. So please bear with me on that. On the cuts where it gets too windy, I may just shut them down and go ahead and self-narrate. But let's just go ahead and proceed. So I just got told that I've got a really bad echo. Shouldn't have. I don't have another sound source going, so I shouldn't have. But we're going to have to figure that out. Okay, a lot of echo. Let's see if we can stop it. I don't have another sound source on that I'm aware of. So I'll do a little trick over here. Excuse me for a minute. Okay, is that any better? Yeah, I hear that true say. So let's see here. Trying to figure out how to figure it out. You know, with headphones on and stuff, I have no way of knowing. Like I said, this is all a new setup here. The only thing I can think of is we're getting possibly another. Okay, somebody come back to me and tell me if it's, I have a lag time between what I can see from you guys and what I do, obviously, so I'll have to see if that, what I just did, fixed that or not. I just killed all my speakers. Looks like the lag's about a full minute, too. See if I can find it here. Hey, test. Any audio coming out of here? Now, if you guys can still hear me, I'm sorry about the echo. I don't see it on any of my meters either. I have meters for all this. Nothing is showing up here. Still echoing. Let me see what I can do. Well, sorry about that, guys. I wonder if it's just my audio, or let's go ahead and play the video. And then I don't have my headphones even hooked up right now, so there's no headphone echo. There's no audio that I can hear whatsoever in the room, and my meters are showing 0. So I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let me play this vid, and then we'll go ahead and see if there's an echo on the video. You guys let me know, please. I don't know what this is going to sound like. I had to switch to my phone because I finally lost battery in that GoPro. I only carried one battery. I'm going to be seeing as much as I filmed today. But this area is known for flying saucers and all kinds of weird military occupation, weird activities, all the way back to the 30s. And I mean, everything from cattle mutilations to abduction and all that stuff. It's just kept really quiet. No one wants anybody to know about it. It's like, no, they want it to be kept off the map. So, sorry about the shaking. I'm trying to get down here. And like I said, we had to switch to the phone, which doesn't have the best image stabilization. So beneath this rock mass, there's a hole. Let's see if I can find it again. Yeah, it's right there. You can't see it. But if you slide down in here, you can go underneath it all. There's kind of a room. And then this goes back under the rock that we're on top of too. So I need to do a quick record and then go ahead and scan this. I don't know if I can film and scan this one at the same time. Maybe we'll try. Okay, all right, let me know if that did the echo. That should have taken care of it, actually. Let's find out. So okay, let's get some backbeat on that. So that's part of what we're doing is as well as testing all this new hardware. So if somebody wants to no video, no echo on the video. Okay, that's a good sign. I think I got it. I think I was using literally 2 microphones at the same time. Okay, Lizard, thank you. Echo is gone. Excellent. Okay, sweet. Isn't that crazy? One of the other things we have to deal with is the software isn't identifying my video player, but sometimes it falls off or whatever. We'll just run through it. So the next thing, we're just going to go ahead and go another clip here. What this is under this rock mass that I'm on here is a hole, and water disappears down into the ground below. And it's a good 40, 50 foot across. It's a single piece of slab of stone, but it's, like I said, 40, 50 feet across. It's kind of round. And at the front edge here, there's a bunch of rocks piled on it. And this was a site that was kind of on an alignment by some other major monuments that we're going to have to get to in another video because we don't have the pictures of some of them. But regardless, when it comes to this stuff, so on this alignment, when it comes to these things, they'll place things at measured distances, and we expect to have a number of caches associated with the map, not just one. They'll often spread them out in a dozen or even more. Still echoes.
It was gone for a second, but came back. Okay, let's see what we can try to see then. Sorry about this, guys. Let's try. Now I can hear myself. That's not good. That's not good. Same thing. Okay, let's see where we're at right there. We should. Yeah, if there's still an echo, I don't know where it's coming from. It's not any of my devices. I'm not showing up, so could be in some kind of crazy setting somewhere. I don't see anything whatsoever. Let me try this. Okay, let's see. Let's give me some feedback. That might have done it right there. So that I don't see any changes on my meters, but there was another setting that could have been picking up two mics at the same time here. So, and I notice I'm actually a little low now. So give me some feedback on the audio, if somebody can, please. All right, and we'll go on to another video. We know that there's no echo in the video. Oh, there you go. Okay, sweet. Man, I hope that's it. There's a lot of settings in this software, so. Okay, cool. Oh, that's a good sign. All right, let's get into the next one. Let's go on down the line and narrate as we go.
You can see it's a little bit tight. I heard a nice high-pitched beep though. See, there we go. That's not as high pitched. Miniature sounds good. That's what we want to hear. Well, it sounds like there's potentially something deep under this. And seeing as the water goes under this rock mass, and basically, so here's the rock mass. You can see, I mean, it looks like just solid rock. That water is going just beneath the flow channel here. The flow channel coming down, and then it just pulls up and goes in that hole. It goes that way, where that hole wouldn't be there. All that material is able to drain out. As you can see, it doesn't. The sides are sealed, and both sides. And then you just have this massive rock mass, and then all this miles of solid rock base just end right here. So it's apparently going either underground from there or leaking out right here underneath the ground or something. Pretty crazy. Well, at least you know that there's a hit under there anyway. It's just really faint. I mean, that's a lot of work. There's no telling. And it can be pretty deep under this rock mass. So, better equipment though. I've got stuff that will look through this. Just have to get things rolling again and fired up. But, see, we got another propped rock right there, too. Let's leave it. Well, I guess we'll take the next one. Grab it. Oh, stickers. Oops, stickers, cactus. Alright, you can shut off. Now, I don't have much battery, so let's see how long this one lasts. This all was a spur of the moment thing. I got a quick invite to do this. So, yeah, this rock's sitting on a prop stone. So what the person does is put all these on a map, and then when you know the numbers, you can apply them. So right now we're going to walk over this place where I noted the potential alignment was in the original 120 degree line.
Okay, so at this point, in front of me, I'm standing perpendicular to an alignment. So there's an actual imaginary line that goes across, and that I had followed from the map stone. And I'll go back in. We can take, if some people want to take a look at that, I'll show you on the map which line and how that works out. But regardless, this system is different than the one I showed in the original video. This one works in a whole different method. It's from a different person, whole different year set, different methodology and mentality. And what they're doing is using physical monuments like gun sights almost. And what they've got is, from the map stone, you go a specific degree, and then there's some standing plates of rock that are about 5 feet tall. They're only about this thick. They're big plates, and they're leaned up against a shelf like this, so they have a point. And from that perspective of the map stone looking across them, they're extremely pointed and very obvious. And then across from there, probably almost a quarter of a mile, there's a rock that's set with its light colored face directly to you, and there's no other rocks around. And and it just stands out like a sore thumb. So it's like a rifle sight, except instead of looking through 2 at 1, you're just looking at 1 to 1 basically on the points. And so the next clip, I believe, is us looking at that rock set. And now this one's going to get very windy. If it sounds super bad, I'll just go ahead and we'll run through it, and I'll try to narrate it as it goes in time.
So this is the same monument we filmed a little while ago.
Okay, so actually on this one, let's go ahead and take the wind noise down, and I'll just go ahead and narrate this. So this is a monument that you can see on the rock face itself. So the ground out here, at least at this layer, is just solid sandstone. And what's cool about it is you can see the ripple forms in this. It's kind of undulates like this, and that's actually from ancient Triassic or whatever it was, hundreds of millions of years ago. That was the surface of the mud at that time, and it turned to stone, and there it is. And so on top of that, though, you can see these 2 rock plates that are positioned in the distance there. And I'll show you. Here's a neat trick I got set up for later once we figure out how to use all this a little bit better. But so we're looking at these rock plates right here, and what those are it's a monument set, and it's meant just to take an alignment or a measurement off of, and then it gives you a 90-degree directional marker to it. So I'll just go ahead and play this out now. Oops, sorry. Okay, so right here is our glowing rock. So that's our daylight pointer right there, and that right there is also a turtle. So if we look right there is its head, and this is its shell with a hole or cavity. And so the turtles always mean depository or mean a cache or whatever has been buried. And so there are many different types of turtles, and it's species specific. So sea turtles are different than what a land terrapin would be doing. And so they're used based on those traits on the trail. The people who used and made these things were they lived with nature all the time. They were totally in tune with nature. And so I'm going to mute this little deal here. And so they would use the specific traits of animals. Like, for instance, a turtle dove would always be facing away from its nest. And the reason I say that is because in nature, turtle doves, whenever they flush, always flush away from their nest. And they'll use and make a broken wing. They'll drag one wing and they'll flop around and everything to make them look wounded. and then they'll stay just ahead of whatever animal and slowly lead them away from a nest site. So when you see a stone turtle dove, and they're usually represented so accurately that you can easily make them out. And so, but when you see that and it's got its wing tucked underneath tail feathers, then that means you follow the tail instead of the direction of the bird that's looking. An eagle is another what you'd call misleading sign. So people often follow, when you have an eagle head and with the body, if you follow the head, it's leading away. So because when you see them, they're always venturing. So, and at high altitude and cruising, they're never going to be facing their nest. They're always out hunting. And then in a turtle regard, when we see one like this where we don't see any fins at all, and this is a crude one, but the reason they've made the turtle is because this is the actual alignment rock that shows up. You can see how bright the solar face is, and that shows up a quarter mile away off your rifle sight point. And so when you get there at 90 degrees to it, they've just shown you it's a turtle. That means you're approaching a cache, and there's no fins at all, which means legs tucked in. That means at the location. So the turtle would be looking directly at it. So as we progress here through the video, here we go again. Wrong video. Let's do this. So as we progress, we see the large rock mass on the left over there, and you have to kind of stay aware of that as we look here, and I'll point out. So we've got our turtle from the side, and when we turn to look what our turtle's looking at, we've got, actually it's pretty interesting what we have, because on the left side of this we have a human head. It looks like a helmeted head, and it's pretty clear. It's got all the right forms and everything. And then you have a couple other unique shapes here, and it's also a portion of what a turtle is sitting on. So up here is another reminiscent of a turtle head and a stylized shell. And the cavity in the back is what's called an overhang monument. And pirates love to use these things. So you'd see islands and they'd have them, and they'd either bury something inside the overhang, or they'd bury it as if you sat in the overhang and looked out. It'd be a measured distance usually in front of that. In this situation, it literally is probably meaning below this massive rock, which isn't out of the question at all. It's kind of how they usually do things. And then when we look over here on the rock and we have a notch, that hollow is another sign that shows that there's a cavity or a chamber associated up and underneath this rock mass in itself. So, and we'll get a little closer to it and we'll be able to check it out. But yeah, it's pretty interesting how they build these things. That people think, oh, it's pareidolia or whatever, and that it's totally possible. But pareidolia doesn't yield metal detector hits. And of course, now I'm pointing out the head that's got a helmet and the cutout area. And then we're going to point out the overhang in the back. There's some other stuff here, and that's not as blatant, but it's just more and more details, and there's no reason to go over every single point. But right here, in essence, so if we go back just a little bit here, this rock, that's good enough, I guess. So this rock right here is a mushroom. All right. And then this angle is like a mouth. It's an open bracket symbol. So it's an open 90 degrees. So it actually means the thing's sealed with rock and it's to the left. And this mushroom cap means that there's a capstone, which is probably the big rock that we were just looking at. The whole thing could easily be a cap. Nope. Did it again, didn't we? Getting a real bad habit of that. So now I'm not sure how bad the wind noise is on this section. I think I'll take a quick listen. If it's not too bad, we'll go ahead and... Yeah, we can probably roll with that. Let's try it.
Just can't pay attention to everything. But this is our attention gear on 2011. So there's either stashed beneath that or just out here in front of it. It's going to take a lot more further work. I'll do a quick detector survey of this And then like I said, we're losing light. I'll have to start back.
Okay, so that's it for that clip. Let's just go ahead and move on and see what we've got after this.
Okay, I fired this back up because I just found something really interesting. Now we're at the alignment, the 120 line, and we're underneath the large rock mass with the face on it. And I found a couple very interesting hits underneath in this pack rat midden. Now it's below a couple hundred years of accumulation for pack rats. So it's pretty deep. It's about 8 inches there. And my hit was real solid at the top. And I still have it. It's deep, and it's deep underneath pack rat mitten that's hundreds of years old right there. And then just down slope from it, I had another real hot little target, and just under the surface, pulled up this, some type of small mechanism. It's old, but I don't know what it's made out of yet. Or what it goes to, but it certainly shouldn't be.
So that piece is actually solid brass, and we're not gonna restore it or whatever, but check the metal. It's brass, and then it's interesting because it's handmade, the whole thing, from a flat brass sheet and a brass rod, which is really unique. And we would go even older, but I believe this is going to go from mid-17s up to, like I said, mid-1800s, and be associated with the second cache. Now that's interesting because the maps that we followed to get to this position, they indicate they should be about the same age, both in their magnetic declination and as well in the type of symbolism and the type of mapping and the type of alignments they're using. So it kind of validates that, they back each other up. This certainly isn't something from the 1590s, because they probably wouldn't have a screw like that in it. So this is a small wood screw. They would use a rod and have pounded in a small rod or inserted it that way, because they didn't use screws. They used rivets, and they used other fastening systems, but they didn't use that. So but it's interesting that this actually, it fits right on the money with what we're doing. So
Here, and there's nothing even close to us at this point, not even within a mile. So no structures, no anything. So it's pretty interesting to be sitting at this location, just off of this pack rat mitten, which they probably found it and carried it in. But needless to say, what's down there? I don't have a shovel, so I'm going to poke around a little deeper, and then I'll try to figure it out. Well, the camera's telling me the flash is disabled, so it's getting angry about the time. But like I said, if I find something more interesting here, I'll buzz back in.
okay. So I noticed somebody said looks like a brass trigger lock, and yeah, it does. It does similar. And if you've probably actually seen jewelry boxes as well that had the same type of latch, where they'll have a little slot in the wooden top, and then they'll have the identical little latch sticking down from the lid. And so the component that opens it wouldn't be that little rod. That little rod would actually be a tension rod, or it's similar to a spring, you could say, but it's just a brass tension rod. And then your mechanism that would move that latch would be on your little key at the bottom after you go in. And so we'll go on here.
I was just standing here and realized, I was just looking at this little guy here. It's pretty kind of a scary looking face into that rock. And they do this stuff a lot. They'll put animal heads and human heads and weird anamorphic things all around a site, all of them looking kind of toward it.
Okay. Cool. Now we can run through some files here. So see, and what happens is we'll see. It might take a little bit to get this to pick up the pictures again, and I could go ahead and start with another view of the latch. See, it naturally didn't pick it up, so I'll just have to try it a couple times and see if we can get her to go. Sometimes it can be pretty finicky here. Yeah, so I'm not sure why it'll come up, but I'm not sure why sometimes it acts like this. But it just won't recognize the window. And what it's supposed to do is when you open a specific marked window that you've got in the list, it should automatically view that window. And it does with some programs, but apparently not with what's in this computer yet. So open these 100 times here and see if anything will open. Come on, baby. There we go. Okay, so and then now it'll stay. I can run through files as long as they're in sequence here. But this is another view of the latch. I think I've got one more. Yeah, just a still. And you can see where the end of that had broken off. It's pretty interesting the way it's made. It's made really, really nice, but like I said, it's hand cut and hand filed. So now so we can go into let's see what we've got next. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this. See if we can get this thing to go up and fire up again here. Oh, baby. So this is what was underneath the cap. And if you guys didn't get a good chance to hear it, I don't know if you've got on your phone or what, but you have to go back and get earbuds at least, headphones recommended, to listen to this clip. Because this clip is off the charts. This one's really crazy. And let me go ahead and ramp this up good. And it's amazing when I first reached in here and touched this slab that I'm on top of. It blew my mind because it sounds just like you're on top of a big wooden door, except this is a solid stone slab, or there's several fused so tight together I haven't been able to find most of the seams. But I think you guys will. I know I enjoy hearing it. It's very short, but it's pretty amazing. You can hear that. You can hear that. Yeah, so that one kicks my ass. That one's pretty crazy. So under this though, and the reason I brought that up, and we'll try to get these pictures now to show up. Under that though, on and to the side, about 15 feet, probably 12 feet or so from where you're hearing all that hollow and where we get big metal detector hits under that slab. And we only get them at the seam, at the edges of the slab, once we located the crack. And but outside there, I could put the detector and sandwich it underneath part of the rock to the bedrock, and it would just get crazy warbles, like blah, 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 and just go crazy. And then during the original video, there's a point to where I lower the camera down and I look at what looks like a rodent hole, but it's not. It's more of a little cave-in or sinkhole type thing. And when I get the camera down low to it, all of a sudden you'll notice there's like interference or banding in the video. And what that is radiation coming off the gold. So it's a type of plasma, and it'll shut cameras down completely sometimes in some other places, or if you're in a high solar reflection. But being it was later in the day, a low solar angle, but it told me from experience that when that happened to the camera, that there's only one thing that I know that does that, and that's gold. And you can even take a Polaroid one-step camera, and it will blue band on film. So it's doing the same thing. It comes up as a band, like a waveform, but it comes up in banding, and it messes up the sensor until you shut it off and the sensor can reset. And oftentimes it'll totally blow the whole image out. But when I saw that, then it's kind of a verification. And one of the things I learned to do eons ago, and I was taught this actually by one of the 3-letter agencies who was funding this particular project. And this yellow you see in the frame, it is not an anomaly, or it's not messed up film, and it's nothing like that. This was Polaroid, and this is the little hole at the top's not a UFO, by the way. That's a tack hole. It looks like excuse me, like a UFO. Yeah, I've been ill in a little bit, so. But anyway, but the yellow we see, so in the bottom of it down here, I don't know if we can zoom this like this or not. Let's see. On this mouse, I may not be able to. Yeah. So, but anyway, down here at the bottom, where you can see my cursor, there's a bunch of little dots down here, and each one of those dots usually one dot would usually represent pounds of gold 15, 20 feet away. These flares are about 250 feet from the target, and we get them this big because these are really major rooms. And I've never come public about these ever. So I've shown the pictures of the flares and things, but I've never come public about where this area is or what's here. This is another one, and the 3-letter agency that taught me how to do this had never seen flares this large before. But this is the actual plasma you're seeing, and this region right here, it's amazing what it actually looks like. It looks like slime or something coming up, and the belting or this haze is an infrared issue that comes up with the film based on the same thing. And true infrared film, we shoot frame by frame at the same time we shoot this, and it will show a beam or an infrared beam. And this is basically what was messing up the camera from under that rock, is the same thing, the same reason we get these photos. And of course this one's really blasted, but the target for this is about 800 feet in front of this picture, out here underneath this ledge, down deep underneath it. There's a huge room. Some of these rooms you could fit a couple of football fields in, they're so big. And this is the flare that comes off of them. Now we'll go through some other stuff here. Now I'll read a couple, see what we got on here. Yeah, hammer the like button. WBR, man, good to see you, Dale. And everybody, it's really good to see everyone. So I see a lot of familiar names on here, and it's great to see everybody. I appreciate you guys showing up. This is awesome. I know it's really late, so it's cool. Thank you, Cryptic Crystal. That's really nice of you there. I go up and read a couple of these. Oh, Dr. Ketchum says howdy. Hey, cool. You got to tell Melba hi for me. I appreciate that, dude. So if you guys up to this point have any, if you're curious or anything, you want to ask a question or whatever, I'd be happy to answer it. Yeah, Dale, it definitely sounds hollow. It's crazy how hollow that really sounds when you think about what we're hitting. So another thing I wanted to go ahead and show you guys, I can start off with this real fast. So when I talk about, let's see if this thing works. Hey, it worked. When I talk about the magnetic declination, you know, we are right centered here, okay, just about there, right in the center of that. And so if you take a line from that center point where that is, and you draw a line up, or you draw a line up, different dates, if you use a compass, north is going to be in different places. And this is 1590, this region over here, right where this dip is, the farthest point over. Okay, and this is up later in 1700s, and now we've cruised way back over here now. Okay, so like 1750 or something over here. So when we look at what the map is doing, and I think it's easier maybe if we'll go through these. You guys bear with me. We'll just surf them. So if we look at the magnetic declination here, this is what we're looking at. So 1750, this was north. Now this is north. And in 1590, this was north. And this backwards facing N right here. Let me kill our red circle. It doesn't need to be here any longer. So, but when this is backwards N with the degree symbol here, shows you that it's north at 0 degrees. And so the maps, though, and ages, it's interesting because the way this map is used and the way we got to find what we were looking for that's under the big rock was based on known code from the 1500s to early 16, before the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. After that, and when the Spanish came back into New Mexico and the area. So standardized archaeology and anthropology, they like to claim that the Pueblo Revolt was just localized to the Taos Indians and blah, 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 and it wasn't. So if you go talk to all the native tribes in New Mexico, regardless, they are all completely aware of what they did. And as well, if you read like the journals of Adolphe Bandelier, who was here in 1880, and doing the whole thing for J.P. Morgan and those guys, getting all the history, hidden history, everything, he'll tell you the very same thing. Not only that, they also talk about an earlier revolt that happened in the 1300s with Europeans and resulting of occupation by Europeans that got here in the 1100s. A lot of people say they were Templar because of the things they built. And the ruins they left behind in New Mexico are called Abo, Quarai, and Gran Quivira. And they're all built to the standard of European type forts, not anything that was ever built by anybody else or Native Americans or anything like that. And Adolphe Bandelier was here trying to find like a giant stone Maltese cross made out of granite that was inside the ruins of Abo. And he mentions when he knows it was there in 1836, 1837 reported, but when he gets there in 1880, someone has taken it, which would be who they called the Texans, who, if you look up, those guys are the KGC, or Knights of the Golden Circle. This is how all this history was hidden, and even the USGS and their involvement in a lot of it. So knowing all that stuff is how you break all these codes and get to this. But what we're stating here, though, is in particular with this map, what I see fits what we're finding, basically. So the newer map that you can actually see the difference in aging here. So as I move my mouse around, you'll see. Actually, is my mouse even showing up on there? I don't know. We'll use our circle then. So this glyph in particular, all these symbols are sets that are very old, and you can see the difference. And then up here, when we look at that N and then the other scallop form there, those are very, very old. And of course, what looks like SID and MP are much, much newer. Now they're going to date probably from 1750 to 1850, and I'm leaning on the little bit later period of that, and which is interesting because these are what we followed to get to where we found the latch, and in particular the line up here that I'm circled now in the center. That line is the one that we took our bearings off of and got our information off of to follow to be able to find the other monuments that mark that stuff. So if you guys have any questions about how any of this stuff works, let's see what we got. Todd Wyndham, hi buddy, how you doing? Excellent. I'm glad you're still subscribed. I see you you mentioned that. So a lot of people, you got to check your subscriptions, I guess. You guys probably got your notifications. But a lot of people aren't, and people are being unsubscribed like all the time. So you guys really, please always check that stuff. So we got our old red circle still up here. We'll put them to use. So this is the inscription that's on top of the stone that's next to the place where our first video takes place. It's actually, I show this inscription in a small snippet in there. But what I want to bring up here is, this is how their code works. And this hasn't been fully decoded, by the way, yet. So it's not a name. You can imagine pronouncing someone's name LPOE. So it's obviously not someone's name. Now, it's what's interesting when we look, all the letter sizes are deliberate. And if we look at these first 3 letters, they're all the same exact size. And then we do a step up, and then we get these 2 are a little larger, and then we're bigger. And so these can be interpreted like importance in the word, and that they're separate. So they're to be read separately. Now, daro is an interesting word in itself. Because daro doesn't, it means blood, but it doesn't just mean blood, it means menstrual blood. Well, menstrual blood was considered sacred, or in a sense, this is another way of saying royal blood. And you have the royal blood. And the last symbol here, the O with a dot in it, is the accepted. Everyone knows that's the symbol for gold. That's the symbol for oro. Okay, so we know that they're talking about the blood, okay, of the Sacred Heart is what this would be. Okay, so this gives us quite a bit of information. And if we were to read this backwards, then it would give us a 100 symbol, but it's tilted just like the final O is, which is really interesting. And then P can mean anchor symbol or a base of hill. So that stems from the old Phoenician F or P. They were the same letter at one time, and those went through transitions as languages changed. So, but the earliest form, like all the way back to an Ogam, the letter form was used to represent an anchor. Okay, so an anchor would be the thing that you drag the bottom with. And if you're in a boat and you're kind of approaching a hill, it's dragging on the bottom, it catches on the bottom of the hill. So the P or an F, a style, or even a J with a dot on top, can all mean anchor symbol, and it usually means look at the base of the hill. And then the L that's next to it would mean your mason's mark. And I explained some of that a little bit in the previous video. But this stands for the square, the builder's square, and then the lines at the end mean royal, and so that's your form. It's a measure. Now, the Plednoian, this has not been deciphered yet. But A, you have again a P and L, which mean base of hill, mason entrance, go to, look up, look down, 10, 1, 10, or 100. Concealed in the immediate area. This is not actually an N. I don't know what that is. But that's an N. That's not an N. It's not even a known letter form. So again, look up, look down. So this is probably a topographical reference to a bluff, hill, crack, something like that. Then you're going to look up, look down, 10 or 100. And then this is another symbol for 100 generally. And then look, and then again, go to. So they're telling you look up, look down 100. You're going to find a point. You're going to go from that point another 100 to the north. Okay, so this is the first time I've ever even tried to decode this. And there can be some nuanced changes in it, but generally that's going to be exactly what this means. And then you go put it to test in the field, find the monuments it tells you to look at. There'll be generally a line, a vertical line when you get to these locations. And when you get to the vertical line, you look up, look down 10 feet. Generally with a single dot above a line. It's usually 10 feet. And that's going to give you more information. So, and then this means contained within or nearby. It can also represent a crescent moon for silver, or it can mean that you're supposed to go under or into the darkness or under an overhang or into a hole or a crack to get the information, and that this is regarding to, again, to follow the rest of the glyph. If you guys are interested in all that. So this again was what the Mason's mark was on the other map, was this, and this arrow was our direction of channel, and this gives our Mason's mark, and then our arch, and the arch always passes beneath. So this is the rock that had the original treasure, and this is at the top appears the form that we followed from the original map stone. We probably have that again here, and you can see that form is actually shown up here in the center of my circle now. That's the same identical form that we found over there. This is the Mason's mark and the L that tells us our directions. So it's laid out in stages because it's telling me that this stuff is that direction. This line that comes from the eye of the horse across its ear is the exact same as the A there, which is your go-to. And you're going to go to this spot, and then you're going to turn around, because this is in a mirror image. And you're going to turn around, and this is half of a lobe of a heart, which means this is a water reflection. So you're going to flip basically exactly opposite of the way you're standing. And you're going to see the point to stand, and it's going to be so many varas from your first point. And in this situation, it's 5 varas from that rock outcrop, takes you to this little place you stand, and then you walk that pattern. And as you walk that pattern, you turn around, and it puts you underneath the arch. The rest of the profile just means look beneath. So it's pretty basic if you know how to flip things. So this top one is a mirror image, so it's flipped horizontally. This situation down here with the heart tells you to flip it vertically. And so by doing that, it's real easy. You go right to your spot. But without knowing all this information, then you'd never be able to conclude these things. And it's really is interesting because in this photo, when we see this area over here has been dug before, and somebody went in here, and so it's interesting because it's obviously shovels, and the pit that they dug there is about 40 feet long, and it was probably 3 feet wide, maybe a little more. And they took out all the material, and they probably dug 7 or 8 feet deep, and then it all collapsed in over time. Probably not right then. This stuff's pretty stable, but the rain will melt these clay sediments out, and it all sloughed in here and fell in. You can see the rock that's here, that's leaning into their ditch now that collapsed into that. Now, what that means is, and this was probably in the 40s, and because we found 3 UMC cartridges up here that would have been probably around from the 40s. And so, and they were the only other artifacts out here besides the Fuchi or the Habaki, or we thought it was a Habaki, now it's a Fuchi, that I'll show you in a minute, the other artifact, which was found right here where my red circle is now, just underneath those. And so, but it looks like somebody had dug this entire thing out and excavated the whole thing, and they missed. They didn't get it. Because this rock, the dirt would have been covering the arch, or you wouldn't be, I didn't even see it walking up, because it was only about 6 inches open, and little grasses and things. And I didn't realize until I put my metal detector head underneath it that it actually was hollow under there. And I got no hits outside, besides some warbles. And so they apparently missed. I mean, they missed it. And then who's going to think it's in the rock? So what it looks like this is sitting on is bedrock. It looks like it's on the rock strata. And if you look in the background back here, I can show you, this form that's in the background back here, you can see it's attached. It has a softer rock layer under it, and then another big flat belt of harder sandstones. And so these don't sit on dirt. They're part of the strata. And then, but when we look under the corner of the 4 rock here that we're digging under, and we get underneath it, this rock's not on bedrock. It looks like it is when you go on the outside, but on the inside, it's actually sitting on about 6 inches of dirt and clay. So they drug the entire rock, they drug it in and put it here, which is why they dug the big trench on the side, and nobody ever thought to, or they didn't think to excavate in here. Now in the 40s, there was nothing in this country in the 40s. There was nothing out here. It was very remote. You could have gone out there and done anything you wanted, you know. The best vehicles out here were old ratty pickup trucks and stuff. It's just station wagons some guys used. But there was nothing. I mean, it was gravel road, hundreds of miles of gravel road just to get to where we are. Hundreds of miles. I mean, you had to drive. You're talking Phoenix wasn't really anything in the 40s. You're talking driving out from LA on 66, all gravel road for 700-800 miles, like that's for 1,100 miles or whatever, to get into these areas anyway. So Las Vegas and Tucumcari were near, but they were both very small and very limited. And so, and Santa Fe even was as well. Albuquerque was almost non-existent. So, you know, they would have been in the outer lands. It'd be like the outback of Australia. So whatever they brought out here for whatever time it took to do that work in this desert would have been one hell of a job. And, you know, who knows, maybe 3 guys worked on this for 2 weeks to have dug that ditch like that in this part of the country. So you can imagine, I mean, I'm sure they were heartbroken when they got done, but they did not recover. So now I'm going to go over, I think, real fast, we'll go over what I found about the habaki or the fuchi that we found. And it's interesting because there was a story about a kid who had a sword out here and some other stuff, and maybe this came off of it. But where it was found, it was beneath a rock slab. So it wasn't anywhere it could have even slid. It was underneath rocks. And it doesn't, you think, well, it's not that oxidized. But that's literally because of the alloys that it's made out of, and in this country. So everything, if it doesn't get wet, everything will just last forever out here. And the only thing silver is going to do is turn black. And this is called shibuchi, and it's an alloy of silver and copper. So it's the correct metal, it's the correct alloy for an antique katana or wakizashi, which is a shorter type of katana. The only thing is, when we look at this piece, there's something quite different about it. One is the pattern is a cloud and wind pattern, and that's very typical, not just in Japan, but it's typical in and I hope I didn't say China earlier because it's not, it's Japan, but it's more typical in Sumatra and the Philippines and India. And it's interesting because we'll get into it in a minute, but I'll show you there's another detail about this, which is the shape we see here is very super interesting. This top portion on a katana or a wakizashi is almost always, without any fail, flat. Sometimes they made a little curve, very little, but they were almost always generally completely flat. And out of thousands of examples doing research, I only found one matching piece, but the pattern didn't match. The pattern was a later style pattern, and it was interesting because it was made in it was actually, I can quote it here. It was a fushi set from the late Tokugawa shogunate circa 1840 to 1868. Now that's interesting because that's exactly the time period that we're looking at this at the secondary map. But more likely is this is older than that even. So when we look at the design element is most similar to things from the 15 to 1700s. And so I really thought that was, very, very interesting. And another thing that's interesting is these are the traditional patterns that you're going to see. Let's kill our circle for a bit here. These are the traditional patterns that you're going to see in Japanese katanas or wakizashis. Okay, so the patterns, nothing, and these go back. These are the traditional patterns here, and we have some more. And they're also, so in a modern, this is a modern habaki, and you can see the difference between a habaki is it's flat like this, which would go on a standard katana. And you can see how flat the top of the blade is there. But this is nothing like what we see in the fuchi. So this would be a fuchi with a standard blade profile. They're almost the same. They were very, very meticulous about making that way. So if it was made in Japan and not kind of a fluke, then it would have that flat back to the blade. And here's another deal. So these are very old. These are hundreds and hundreds, if not over 1,000 years old pieces. And you'll notice on the top one here, this pattern is using, there's cloud elements and wind elements here, and then there's cloud elements and wind elements here. Now they're a little bit different, but not much. And this one's an almost identical piece, except we still have that angled top, which, like I said, I found one other, and I hope the picture's in here, but I found one other example of that, literally out of thousands. So I spent more than dozens of hours just researching these pieces and parts and alloys and things. So this is the identical alloy that we have in the piece that we found. And at most, even in a bad place, these alloys are so fine. This is as much oxidation as you're going to see on them. And where we're at it's just such a clean environment, perfect environment. And they're probably, what we're looking at probably isn't 1,000 years old like these pieces are. Now I'm going to run back up through here for a minute because I know we have some more. So here's some more traditional styles, which are really, really interesting. And here is a modern rendition of an ancient sword, but this is a little different piece than the Fuchi. And it has, again, an absolute, oops, that's not good. We don't want to do that. It has an absolute flat edge here. We can see if we go up to the sword here, it still doesn't have that same internal. So they've remade, and you can see where they've remade this design, but they've done a copy work here of clouds and wind, but it's not the same way that the authentic clouds and wind that we see in the ancient Japanese stuff, or the Philippines, or Sumatra, or the Indies. They're all more like what we show on our piece. So it's a nice copy, but you can actually tell that it's not, an authentic old piece, even like ours is. Do we go 2 there? No, we're good. Just sized. Okay, so again, we're looking, this is the classic. This is another very old Fuchi. And they come with a couple other pieces. I can't remember what the other pieces' names are, but they usually built them in a small set to be on the sword, so they were ornamentally similar. But again, this is the standard profile that we're seeing here, and with that flat, absolute flat back. Okay, so that's going to cover, except for, I'm not sure, this is the one that didn't show up. So we did find one sword that was most like what we found, like the Fuchi we found. And it's interesting because this sword has a particular history, and I could not find its origin, but it is a very famous sword. And if it'll come up here, no, not yet. Let's see if we can get it to come up. Come on. It's wanting to open in a browser instead for some reason. So if you bear with me just a second, I'll just do something real fast here. I can't believe I'm doing this while we're live, but it's okay. I'm sure you guys are fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it in here, and we'll just let it be called that for now. It should be in here now. Let's see. Okay, so let's see if it'll show. Okay, I got it now. If it'll just open, we'll be good to go. Yeah, sorry about this, you guys. Now it's not wanting to pick it up again. I'm having to do a whole bunch of program changes here, each time trying to get it to pick it up. A little frustrating. Should work though. Let's see. Come on, baby. There we go. It finally recognized it. Now it's a very small, but this, and I was hoping I could, well, let's see. We can zoom this, can't we? Let's see. Yeah, so it didn't copy well. But this is a sword off a Blackbeard ship from the early 1700s. And this cloud form and wind form that we see on here is the most similar pattern we could find out of thousands of examples as the Fuchi that we found, which is really cool. He was known to be in the Caribbean, sailed the Atlantic and the East Indies, But the unique thing about pirates is they came across things from every other traveler and every other ship that they walked on board, and they raided and everything. So these kind of pieces could literally come from anywhere in the world. The styles of this are similar to, again, Sumatra, the Philippines, and the Indies, but not the later. All of the above would be very, very, very old. So it yields to say that the piece that we found, the Fuji that we found as well, would be a similar date. I mean, and not be a type of a replica, a more recent replica. It would be, oh, come on, you can show up. I got confidence in you. We're trying it again. So sorry I go quiet doing this, but I'm going through the program again, and we'll see if we can get it to identify the photo again. I'll have this figured out eventually. So here we go again. So that's what's unique about this one is this. It has everything that we would look at and say this is an authentic piece. Not only is it authentic, but it's pre-1800s, and that it fits a very old. If it's Japanese, it's very, very old and very ornate. Yet it is the Japanese alloy called shibuchi. So it's really, really interesting that this was sitting here out in the middle of the New Mexico desert, and none of what I can find yields this to be from any type of a replica or anything else like that. So, and like the casting marks that we see on here, they're common. They're on most of them, and there's little saw marks and file marks, and all those things are here. And on replica pieces, they're all die cast. And so the most you're going to find, you look on the inside, it's like when you look at a toy car, is these little round circles where they pump the metal in the die cast machine. This doesn't have any of that. This has saw marks and hand marks where it was hand cast, filed and ground, and then to the state that we see it in now, which again doesn't yield to anything like a replica sword. Now, if someone did have an original sword and a kid stole it, was out here and broke it and lost it and things like that. Another thing is after looking at over 1,000 of these, we only found a handful, just 3 or 4, that even fit this design motif. So if it's a replica, they're not going to replicate the swords that nobody knows exists, that only sword pros and these guys and extreme collectors are even aware of. These patterns, no one's going to try to replicate that stuff and put it on here. And then whoever would have replicated it would have done a better job than the professional katanas and things that we see being produced where they're trying to replicate this stuff. This is dead on the money. And it's closest, like we say, in form and in patterning to the piece that's, except for the hilt that's sticking out, to the piece that's on Blackbeard's sword. So just really, how cool is that? I know it kind of blew me away the more research I did on it. I was very skeptical about this piece. I thought, oh, well, it's whatever it is. It's nothing. But the more work I did on it, the better it got, basically. So a couple of things we can get into right now. Now, that's going to probably conclude tonight's deal as far as these sites go in this, but I do want to talk about a couple other things real fast. One of them is I will be speaking at a conference in Tallahena, Oklahoma, called the Kiamichi Bigfoot Conference, or Kiamichi Mountains Bigfoot Conference, excuse me. And this will be a heck of an event. This is all going to be Bigfoot related. We've got a little flyer here. I'm going to try to put it up if she'll do it for us again here. Bear with me. So anyway, I'll be going up there now. I was approached by Tanya Kordek. She's the owner of the Bigfoot Museum of Oklahoma. And she had asked me if I wanted to go up there and speak. And so I just said, well, how about we just do a conference? And she said, well, I don't know how to do them, whatever. And I said, well, if you'll follow up on a few things, I'll do everything I can, and we'll get it fired up and we'll get one going. So amazingly, we don't have any resources, and we've asked people to step up and do what they can to assist. And people have, and it's been a tremendous response. The names we have are just off the charts. If I can get this flyer, I'm just doing it over and over. If I can get this flyer to show up, we're going to take a good look. But they've been so gracious about stepping up to be part of this. And what we wanted to do was, there's nothing wrong with what people consider woo. It's a relative term. Personally, I think things like mind speak and things like that are completely normal, so I don't tend to put them in a woo bracket. But we didn't want to surround this event based on any type of a woo situation or anything like that. So we purposely set researchers that take maybe a more serious look, or even analytical or scientific look, with a lot of heavy research. We have Samuel Webb from the Ketchum study, and he's a PhD psychologist, and he worked as well though with Melba Ketchum on the Genome Project. And then we have Ken Gerard. I think we all know who that is, Missing in Alaska and things, and the shows and Monster Quest and everything that he's done, and is still doing to this day. And he's a great guy. I met Ken, I love him to death. He's one of the first names I thought of. And we got Jack Carey from Gaia and many other productions on television. Jack's an amazing guy. I consider him brother and part of KX. And we've researched together during the University of New Mexico Bigfoot study, doing that stuff, and worked on that with JC Johnson and them. And so we got to share a little bit of field time there. And then we have, of course, Daryl Adams, and we have Toby Johnson, and we have, I think they're going to show up and do kind of a co-broadcast deal. And we got Josh Parsons from Hide and Seek Archives, and we have a local up there who runs the Honobia Bigfoot Festival, Troy Hudson. He's going to be there speaking. And then a friend of mine, Mitchell Townsend, who has done just amazing work on teeth and bite imprints in bone and things like that. Just amazing work. And that, to me, that's some of the best evidence out there. It's most indisputable as far as I'm concerned. We do a lot of collection and documentation of that, but he's taken that to a whole nother level. And they have Shaitan Noir, who's the editor of several magazines, including Cryptid. We have one right here, right? See, so it's Cryptozoology Digest, and I know she has Bigfoot GQ and a couple other publications out there. She's going to be there doing some speaking and presentation work as well. And I want to show you the flyer, and it's really not cooperating whatsoever at the moment, but we're going to keep trying it here. Let's see. Okay, it shouldn't take a second. I got a trick here that usually works. And we'll see if this one will go now. And that didn't work. So this is really confusing, and it's a little disheartening after 3,000 taps that it's not identifying. And it just will at random all of a sudden, which is really interesting. So we'll try her again. Yeah, there's no telling why. It's okay, here we go. Let's try this. Yeah, so we might have to, if I can't get these pictures to come up anymore, we may have to call this. But I have a couple more things I want to show you. There we go. Well, after all that. So this is the flyer for the Kiamichi Mountain Bigfoot Conference. It'll be May 20th and 21st, and we're going to have a VIP donation ceremony and book signing May 19th at the museum itself. The main event will be taking place at the Choctaw Community Center, which is a very large building. It's very modern. It's beautiful. They've got great multimedia. It's going to be awesome. On the evening of the 19th is going to be more of an informal gathering type deal. It's free. We encourage donations to the museum, and if you want to have a little speak time, bring a donation, and we're going to let you make a speech. And it's also going to be, like I said, a book signing. So Ken will be there and some other authors that'll be there getting books for sale that you can hang out with them personally and just have a more intimate, quiet time to talk with them and get pictures and get your book signed and things like that. And then we'll be donating a few things to the museum as behalf of KX. And then that's probably only going to last, 3-4 hours in the evening. We're thinking maybe 7 p.m. to 10. If you want to bring a refreshment, beverage, something like that's great. We should have a little bit there, but it's not going to be anything too special. Just kind of like I said, more informal, more personal gathering. And we encourage whoever wants to stop by there and be part of that to do that as well. So, and then other than that, we'll go check out, and I'll show you. I've never ever pushed any kind of merch or anything like that before. And so these are some of our, that actually just popped up. These are some of our t-shirt designs. And you can look in the description of this video or most of our videos and go to frontdeer.com to pick up these designs and more. If you don't see one of these you like, you just got to get a hold of me and we'll pump you a shirt out straight from here at the house. So these are some of the new ones. We've got new designs. I just think you guys might get a kick out of those. And for the ladies, chicks love Bigfoot. Everybody knows it, right? And we have a lot of colors, a lot of sizes, everything even in the greens and things. And then for the pterosaur lovers out there, we also have had recent pterosaur sighting this last season before winter. And we had reports a month before that. And then I've had a whole lot of local reports that in the valley we're in right here is about maybe 60 miles by 60 miles, that they literally see them quite frequently, and some of the ranchers don't like them. Not everyone sees them. They seem to stay within certain regions, and there's a couple of mesas they fly between. We've had reports of what appears to be big eggs that the ranchers thought that they were ostrich eggs or something. They were so large, but there was batches of them in clutches up in the cliffs. And so, which is really, really cool. And those guys actually stated us, and this is a quote. He said, it's not those damn cats getting our livestock. It's those damn big birds. And this is what he's talking about. So that's on the new horizons. And like I said, if you like any of these designs you see, and there's a whole bunch more, just follow the links in the descriptions, and you guys can go get those checked out. Okay, and I think that's probably gonna conclude us for the evening here. I think appreciate everybody coming out for this thing tonight. It's been really good. I'm gonna go ahead and look through some of our chats now, and we'll see what we can kind of come up with. Get these addressed. Okay. Okay, Jonesy, can you say or estimate how much gold is or what there is there? If not, totally understand. No, actually, there is a way. So we called it, the video was called 77 Mule Loads to Glory. And that's because in the horse's head glyph, those dots don't mean it's an Appaloosa. So those dots represent how many pack animals that they used to haul it. And there's some holes outside the horse outline, and that could potentially be the number of caches they have this thing divided up into. It could also be some other information or additional dots that didn't fit inside the horse, basically. Because if you try to dot that rock like that, you're going to chip the rock out, so you can only put them so close together. But what we counted was roughly 77. But in the main map stone, there's the two red, you can review that. There's two red, basically sevens. If you flip it as a water reflection, flip it vertically, the two Mason's mark becomes, the two L's become sevens. And so that would be 77. So now we know that the pack animals maxed out at 186 pounds was the max weight. And they seldom ever loaded them that heavy. They generally just put 2 bars on them. And a bar about that big and about that thick would weigh about 80 pounds. So gold's very heavy. So what we see in the movies, they got a satchel full of gold. Yeah, no way. So a loaf of bread sized amount of gold weigh 1,200 pounds. So a lot of cars wouldn't carry that. So what we're looking at is two little bars like this in leather flaps on each side of a horse, or their pack horses, mules. That's all they would take. But you're looking at 77 times 160. And it comes out somewhere at today's market right around, actually, it's more than this because this is when it was lower, but at 2,000 an ounce, it comes out to 260 million. And so, but like I said, we don't know if that's all there, but that whole load would only take up a space about like yay big, right? It's not a very big space. And then, but I can tell you from the metal detector hits that we got underneath that rock, and the way the detector acts. So if you had an engine block just below that plate, that hollow sounding door plate, you put an engine block down there, a big V8, that's about what it would sound like. But we get a higher pitch that would come off of finer metals, non-ferrous, silver, gold, copper, generally highly conductive to make the high pitch, so silver or gold. And to get that to read silver or gold, because the frequency silver or gold responds to is higher than what iron responds to, and the lower frequencies travel farther. So gold is going to give you a lot less signal back, in a sense, at depth with a machine. So these metal detectors are only rated to read like 18 inches deep. But that's not through rock and making it through a small crack at the edge of the door plate, or what we call the door plate. That it's a lot bigger than that. And we can, when I took my readings outside, the type of warbles and things I get, I would guesstimate it's maybe 5 feet down, all rocked in. And then you'd remove all that rock, and then there'd be rock backing, which would be the original bluff, and then they would have gone into that, maybe even as far as 5 to 10 feet back up underneath there, and then that's where they would be. And that's what we're hearing. What we hear is consistent with if you had 77 mule loads of gold, and it was placed 5 feet down, 10 feet back in the rock strata, that's be consistent with what we're hearing. Okay. This is J&D's Indie Bigfoot Research. Good to see you guys. Oh, cool. Yeah, and I'll give you a shout out. So World Bigfoot Radio, for those not seeing the chat, Duke says tomorrow at 8 Central, whoever wants to see it, they will be talking about hair samples collected by myself, talk about it with Dr. Melville Ketchum. And then, so don't miss that, you guys. And Tina P, thank you. Heard about us from Night Callers Radio. That's great. Excellent. Yeah, that was a good show. Those are great people. It says, how wide was the blade? Now, Dale, you're talking about on the Hibuchi, or I mean the Fuchi on the Habaki, I believe, correct? I think the blade height would have been probably about, I don't have my mic, my micrometer sitting there, maybe 4.5 or maybe 4.5, 5 centimeters, maybe a little bit more. So smaller than a katana, I would think. So it should fit a like I said, wakizashi, Wakizashi, which is just a smaller type of katana. So Duke. Oh yeah. So I will also be, as Duke says, at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference next spring. And then we've got a couple others. So, and then I'll be at the Moon Lake Gathering in Utah, which is more treasure related, plus Bigfoot, aliens, ancient weird stuff, because you can't do treasure without running into all that crap eventually. So, but that will be at the Moon Lake Gathering. I'll be doing a presentation there too on July 30th. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, birds would carry anything off. Damn right they would. And a little story, John Orr, from the res, and this was given to me by the executive director of the University of New Mexico Gallup campus. The executive director told us a report that he had been getting from the locals, because he's willing to go look at all this stuff, about something that had been landing on these guys' roof, and they had a pitched roof, and a lot of them out there have flat roofs or they have trailers, but this is a house has a pitched roof, and this thing, something heavy, kept getting on their pitched roof at night, and they could hear it. And they never heard it go down the roof or anything like that, but they'd hear it land and scuffle and then leave. And just not too far from there, a guy was walking at night. Now, on the res, guys just walk. Everybody walks. Nobody even takes flashlights. It's black. They just walk everywhere. And a guy was walking, and he was wearing a leather jacket. Something picked him up and a couple of feet off the ground by his leather jacket, and actually tore and penetrated the leather jacket, messed him up a little bit, and dropped him back he freaked out, and it dropped him back on the ground. So you can imagine that one. What else we got here? Okay, Jonesy, we'll appreciate that. And everybody, it's been a great deal this evening. It looks like we're out of questions, and it's probably time to hit it. How late we push here? 1:32. All right, hour and a half. It's probably time to wrap it. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody. Make sure to check out that merch stuff in the description below. It's really, really going to help. We also have our KXPD3 parabolic microphone for sale. Anybody that PMs me that watches the show and mentions this, I'll give you a massive discount on those things if you want. I just do that for our people. If you buy them through CrowderExploration.com. eBay's going to tack on a whole bunch of money, man. They hit me for like $140 for every one of those they sell, because they won't advertise it if I don't pay them a bunch of money. So buy them off the website. It'll save you a bunch of money there. And then, make sure to check us out in Talihina, Oklahoma. If you only get to see one event this year, if you've never been to an event, and if you're curious, this is one you need to see. It's being tagged as probably the most comprehensive Bigfoot event to date. And we call it a conference, not a festival or a con, Bigfoot Con, for a reason. It's going to be to share the understanding of what we've learned through true research and observation, repeated scientific analysis, and things like that about the species. And I think that people don't really get a chance to get into that, because most of these speakers are telling you what you want to hear. A lot of the things just come because that's what they are. They're not what we want to know. They're not what we want to think. They're not what we want to say. Here's what we found. Here's what we found repetitively. And then this is what that would mean. So don't miss that. If you guys get a chance to hit any one event this year, Talihina, Oklahoma, it's really, really reasonable. I think we're one of the cheapest events out there, because we want to bring in the public, and we want more people to show up and get the understanding. So, okay, again, thank you guys. I appreciate everyone being here. Shout out to all my bros. Can't name you all, man. I love everybody out there. Thanks a lot. And I'll see you guys again. All right.